But hey, I really appreciate you hanging out with us today, Collin, and coming to give us some of your insights and maybe some predictions about how things are going to go, how the market's going to unfold now that we have Donald Trump and Scott Bessent leading and controlling at the helm. But first things first, I want to talk about inflation, which I think is sitting around 3% right now. And I know that I'm pretty sure you think around 3% is probably where it's going to be sitting at for the foreseeable future, but with high growth. And I'm just wondering how you see all this panning out under a Trump administration.
Yeah, no, I think 3% is the new norm. I don't think we're going back to 2%. And the way that the Fed's been reacting to the 3% number, the fact that they lowered rates means that they're not serious about it either. Because if they were serious about getting inflation down at 2%, they wouldn't have lowered rates. Because obviously it went in the opposite direction. And so I think we're in a position where inflation is going to be consistent. It's going to be sticky. And now everything looks like it's going great. I mean, you have like 10-year treasury at almost 5%. You have all these things that if anyone's been an investor for the past 20 years, you think, wow, almost 5% 10-year treasury, the stock market where it's at, everything's going great. But if you really look at the numbers, it's just because inflation is higher, the dollar is losing more value, and our dollar is able to buy a lot less. So it's these new numbers feel better sometimes for investors, but actually they're still, it's becoming more and more difficult for them to keep up with the day-to-day living and expenses, and all the increase in costs day-to-day have actually hurt them more than the increase in the value of their investments, if that makes sense.
Right. And
so it's confusing.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too, because I know currently our national debt is projected to reach around 250% of our GDP within 30 years. But with Trump, moving super fast here to try and cut out a bunch of our debt, who knows if he'll be successful? Hopefully he is. But do you see any sort of positive effect for that, for our dollar, or will the de-dollarization just continue anyway?
Well, I mean, obviously cutting the fat and cutting a lot of the social programs that we didn't need, and sending money overseas to places that we didn't. Doge is doing a good job finding some of it. The question is it too little, too late? Unfortunately, the big problem that I see in today's environment is that we're finally at this point where we're so broke that we've handed over the keys to Doge and sort of like bail us out. I mean, we're in a significant deficit right now. The almost $37 trillion in debt. We can't cover our liabilities. So now, the Trump administration is, let's look at what assets we have. And so now we have this big conversation about, do we, revalue gold at current today's values? What does that do? There's been some talks about doing like a gold bond, where people could actually get a bond that would be backed by gold, because we're really in the final stages. This gold reevaluation is a really exciting thing and also quite scary. Because the last time we've done some kind of reevaluation of gold was, during the Great Depression. 1932 was when Roosevelt said, "Hey, we're going to go away from the gold standard," and they said, "Turn all your gold in," and then they just recalibrated the gold price 40% higher. So the reevaluation and them going to Fort Knox and what's happening is interesting and it's exciting. But is there another end game with the government where maybe they say gold is going to be worth $3,000 an ounce? They're going to revalue gold. They're going to tell everybody to turn their gold back in, and then they're going to come back and say the gold's worth $5,000 an ounce. These are the things that always concerns me. Even though I think there's optimism in this new government, the end of the day, like we're trusting, parts of the government, and that's the part that's sort of difficult. So the new exciting news in our space is, are they going to go and see how much gold we have in Fort Knox? Are they going to do an audit of Fort Knox? And then how does that play out? And there's a lot of different scenarios that could play out with an audit of Fort Knox.
What would that look like? Like, for instance, what if there isn't as much gold that we thought there? What if there's more? How would that affect the price of gold?
The first thing, just fundamentally, is when we had this gold in our reserve in Fort Knox. So they haven't done an audit in 50 years. And for people that don't know, in today's environment, when you buy gold, you get it in 24 karat. You get it like this. And it's most of the coins are 24 karat. The American Eagle is the exception at 22 karat. But most of the stuff you're buying is 24 karat. But that was not the case in the 20s and 30s. And all the coins back then were 22 karat and less. And so when they melted down the coins, the St. Gaudens and all the coins that we had, they turned them into bars. They called them like coin bars. Those coin bars are actually only 90% gold or less. Whereas today, the bar that I just held up, that's a 24 karat gold bar. So that's 0.999. So it's very pure. So it has 10% more gold today than all the current modern day bars, and most of the coins have 10% more. So when people look at what we have in Fort Knox, all of that gold is actually not even approved for COMEX or LBMA. It wouldn't be allowed in your IRAs. It doesn't have the purity necessary. So we have, it's the numbers are misleading in terms of the tons of gold that they say we have. Because if you really look at what's there and the quality of the gold, it's a lot less. However you do the math, however you want to do the math, you're looking at 800 billion, give or take 850 in terms of gold that we own if you value it at today's valuation. The number that people in my industry are sort of talking about is they may revalue it at $4,000 an ounce, which would give our gold at a value of about $1 trillion. And in essence, the thought is that if we revalue it from, so it's been sitting on the books at $42.22 because that was the value of it in 1974. So they've revalued it. If they revalue it today, let's say $4,000 an ounce, then we'd have about $1 trillion in gold in our reserves if everything is there. Now, to answer your question, there have been a lot of talks that we've sold our gold to Europe. We've maybe leased some of it out. So maybe there's some loans against it. Maybe we've done like what some of these ETFs are doing. There's like 200 to 1. Maybe we don't have it all there. I think whether we have it all there or we don't, doing a full audit will boost the price of gold because it'll bring excitement to gold. It actually makes it real for us that we have this sitting on our books. So when Bassett says, we're going to monetize our gold or we're going to monetize our assets, he's a gold bug. He's no fool. I don't think he would consider selling, even though there's been some talk of that. I think what he's going to do is just revalue it. So we put some value into the treasury and we say, hey, we have $1 trillion here, give or take. We're a little bit less in debt than we thought. We're going to cut hopefully $1 trillion with Doge, and we're sort of moving in the right direction. And maybe they sell these gold bonds, or we let people borrow against the gold that we have. There's a number of things that we could do, but I think the worst thing we could do, and a few countries have done this, is that some countries have actually sold their gold over the last 25 years, and those countries really regretted that decision.
Yeah, I mean, so gold, I think, is currently sitting around 2,896 per ounce. And I'm reading that is actually due to Trump's tariffs, just the announcements. So I'm just wondering, so tariff announcements are raising the price of gold. What other policies might we be looking for that could, besides what you just talked about, that could help improve, raise the price of gold, and what does that mean for Noble Gold?
Yeah, gold price today is $2,935. So it moved up a little bit since we over the last day. So it's a little bit higher. Silver's at 32.90. Silver's up almost 2% today. Gold's up about
Oh yeah, yeah, silver is just a whole other thing. I mean, and I want to get into that because I'm going to talk about your book too. But
yeah. So what happened? The reason that part of it. So listen, gold's been setting record highs for the past 2 years, basically. Set 40 different record highs, so it just continues to go up. Yeah, part of it is the tariffs, right? There is that concern, and part of it, what happened with the tariffs, is from once the election happened and Trump won, big gold holders and exchanges wanted to get their gold back to the U.S. because there was some concern that he was going to put a tariff on gold and silver. So they started shipping their gold from London to the U.S. And then 2 weeks ago, more people started to do that because they're really getting concerned about the tariffs. And then guess what happened is that the London Exchange said, we're out of gold. We didn't have enough gold. And they told everyone they have to wait. Now, the reason that set people in a panic is because all of the contracts are supposed to be back per ounce. So there should have never been a delay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They basically have been running a Ponzi scheme. And there's been a lot of talk that the ETFs have been doing the same thing. And I've even read reports from insiders that say it's like 200 to 1, that they have 200 contracts for every 1 ounce of gold and silver. So this was a real eye-opening moment for people like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to have gold there. So everybody started calling in their gold. They wanted it shipped to New York and Delaware. And they were like, we don't have enough gold. So that just set people more into a panic. And now there's just this question of like, do we really have all the gold? And then I don't know if you saw over the weekend, but Elon Musk tweeted about basically what Rand Paul has been talking about is they need to do an audit of Fort Knox. And so that Elon Musk was basically sent he has a funny tweet where he's talking about like, does Fort Knox actually have
right. There's some pretty genius memes out about that.
Yeah, and by the way, this whole thing got started from Zero Hedge. Zero Hedge was the first. That's how this whole thing began. They put an article out saying like, "Hey, where's the gold? Here's who's confirming that gold wasn't stolen from Fort Knox. Maybe it's there, maybe it's not. The gold is owned by the American public. We want to know if it's still there." And then he wrote a funny South Park meme and said, "And it's gone."
Right.
So yeah, there's concern why we've never done this audit. If gold is one of the best assets that we have, and I would argue that it's the best asset, then because if you look at other assets we have military, we have real estate. Like what other assets do we have? Real estate's in the toilet. Like nobody wants these office buildings that the government owns. Like they're not going to be able to sell those. So what's an asset that's liquid that we have? So gold is becoming more in the focus. And so so there's this big push for an audit, which I've been saying for 15 years they should be doing an audit. But now they're going to do an audit and they're going to revalue the gold to a new price, and that'll be quite telling. I think what my gut is they revalue it to at least $3,000 an ounce, because I don't think they're going to want to do an audit every year. We're basically at 3,000. And what that would say to me as an investor is like, hey, the U.S., the government is setting the floor for gold, right? They're saying like 3,000 is the new floor. So I think it's going to be pretty exciting either way. I can't wait to see what's there and what they find out. And also there's a lot of rumors because there's been a lot of buying overseas, like suspicious private buying of gold. So some people believe, and I don't know if this is true, but some people believe that the Federal Reserve has actually been buying gold all over the world because they knew this audit was going to happen. And so they're trying to fill back the coffers and get gold in there. So I've seen reports of that happening too, which is an interesting theory. At the end of the day, it's what needs to happen. It's our gold, um, and I think it'll be telling to see if we actually have it all there.
Yeah, all the flailing that they're doing doesn't give me a lot of confidence. I do want to remind everybody that the website is noblegoldinvestments.com. And Collin is quite literally one of the best in the business. You can go and look up his reviews. And I have no doubt that he would probably agree with me. You have, I think, some of the highest ratings that are out there in the industry. But just for my audience, we've gone over this before, but why you mentioned that gold is one of our best assets, and you listed the reason why. But why is gold and precious metals in general such a good asset to have as part of your portfolio?
Well, there's no counterparty risk. So, when you own this, there's no risk of it being owned by anyone else. The gold that you buy from us is yours. There's no contract on it. So it's one of the few assets you own by yourself. So I would say that that's the first thing. Two, it's liquid anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world you can sell these assets. Anywhere in the world they want it. There's not a lot of assets like that in the world that will be accepted everywhere.
Yeah.
So I like the availability and the liquidity in it. The demand
Yeah, who's
is
not going to
big.
want gold at any point in time?
Yeah. Central banks. So, we supposedly have over 8,000 tons. The world has been buying a minimum. When I say the world, I mean the world central banks, just the central banks alone, have been buying at least 1,000 or more tons per year for the past 4 years. So since COVID, central banks have been on a buying spree. And so basically what central banks are doing is they're divesting from our bonds, our US bonds, and they're buying gold. I mean, it's very simple. And so they're just saying, like, look, why would I buy a bond, even a treasury bond, let's say you buy a 10-year treasury at 4.7%. Why would I buy that, which is, I'm buying a bond of a country that's already has more debt than we've ever seen. So it's a very risky bond. But as soon as those bonds come due, they're just taking those bonds and putting it into gold. And if gold just does, and listen, past performance is not an indication of future growth. But if gold just does what it's done, forget the fact that gold's up over the last year and a half, 46%. Forget that. Let's just say it does what it's done since 2001. Since we went and the Fed really started screwing up this government, this economy, it's been up over 8% a year. So the world is just saying, like, listen, I know people are going to want this, but they're moving out of these bonds, these risky investments, and they're getting into gold. So I think that if you had the largest investors in the world buying something, then I think it's a good indication. So for anybody that hasn't bought gold, I don't understand, because it's such an important time in our history that the dollar is in such peril that we're basically doing an estate sale of our assets. I mean, that's really what we're doing. We're when you go to a estate sale and someone died and they're just getting rid of the sofa and this.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing in the country. We're like, okay, we got a little gold that, well, hopefully someone will buy that, or we'll loan against that, and we got these old office buildings that we're going to sell. We got this, and I mean, we're scraping by here to survive. So I just think that gold is one of those assets, and I know people are like, it's so expensive, but I think that it's expensive for a reason. It's expensive because it's in demand. And as much as everybody said it's expensive, I'll tell you this is the one thing that's been true since I've been in the business since 2008. There's never been a year that people didn't say gold was expensive. So it doesn't matter where the price is. They always say it's expensive. Now, the one thing I will tell you is that no one is saying silver's expensive.
Right.
And if gold does what we think it's going to do, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 an ounce, $7,000, $10,000, the way the math works today, if we were to back our dollar 40% with gold, based on all the dollars that are out there in the world, gold would have to be at $28,000 an ounce. So what do you think silver's going to do in that environment? Silver's obviously going to naturally go up too, right?
Yep.
So the interesting opportunity right now, in my opinion, is really silver. I think you got to have gold; it's part of your portfolio. But I really think that silver, which I talk about in so many different ways, there's so many uses that people aren't even aware of. But silver, I think, is a great opportunity of an unbelievable super cycle. And I talk a lot about that in my book. Is that there's few times in history where you get an opportunity, and I really think that opportunity for silver is right.
Right. Silver is really interesting because it's anybody can see logically that precious metals in general are going to be gigantic as we enter these new technological explosions. But silver specifically, I mean, you're talking about military hardware, AI, robotics, basically everything at this point. I mean, that holds up our civilization. We're going to need silver. And not to mention this Russia-Ukraine deal that Trump is trying to do. How is all of this going to fit into silver?
Yeah, well, I think that they, the deal that I mean, obviously, we're trying to end the war, which I think is Trump's, one of his greatest strengths is that he's a bold negotiator, but he doesn't like to get into war, and I think that's his goal with Russia and Ukraine. Obviously, there's something that could come out of it for us in terms of not just ending the war, but part of the plan for President Trump is like we want to stop sending so much arms to Ukraine because it costs us a fortune. So that's down below the surface. That's part of our underlying reason for wanting to end the war. And I know that having these negotiations to create peace in the world is something that benefits everybody.
Right, and we'd get some control. Well, at least part of what we're hearing about the plan right now is that we would get some control over these resources, which I'm guessing includes a lot of silver.
Yeah, no, that would be a part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think ultimately, like the tariffs help us in a number of ways in terms of just bringing manufacturing, forcing companies to bring plants back and jobs back and bringing tax dollars back here to the U.S. One thing though, the reason that gold and silver have been moving up, especially silver, is if we continue to have a tariff in Mexico and silver is a part of this, 80% of the silver we use in this country comes from Mexico. So if we tax that or if we tariff that at a 25% clip, silver goes to $38, our cost, it jumps significantly. So these are all reasons why you're seeing this kind of excitement in buying, this quick buying, because people are concerned about that potential tariff and how things will get more expensive. Ultimately, no matter what, things are going to get more expensive, whether we tariff something that comes from China or Mexico or Canada, or if we make it here in the U.S. I mean, ultimately, that's the thing that people don't realize is that, yes, it is great that we'll start having more jobs here and more money circulates here, but it's not saying where things are going to get less expensive. Things will continue to get more expensive because the reason that we ship from overseas is because the labor is cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So, things will get more expensive. And I think that that's one of the underlying things that's happening. You are seeing people, unfortunately, selling gold and silver jewelry today because even though, things seem to be, they're going in a good direction, people today are still hurting from what happened over the last 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
Their jobs are not in a great place. Their income's not in a great place. Our taxes have been extremely high. So there's people today that are selling jewelry because they have to just survive. And it's one of the assets they have. I mean, I know that nobody, if they could help it, would want to sell any of gold or silver today because we know that we're at the beginning of a bull run in the metals. But yeah, we are seeing that because people are hurting, unfortunately. So I think it's this year is really a year of change. We're really shaking things up. I think unemployment's going to go up a little bit because, I mean, let's be honest. If all these people take these deals from the government that are off for 8 months, once they come off the books, how many of them are actually going to find a job or go to another job? I mean, I don't know what the are going to play. So, and out of our, below 4% unemployment rate, almost 40% of those jobs right now are government jobs. So unemployment's going to go up. Now, in the big long term, it's great, right? Because at the end of the day, we're paying for jobs that we don't need. We're paying for things we don't need. But in the short term, unemployment's going to go up. Inflation's going to continue to go up. So these items, gold and silver, are really poised to do well in this environment. And I get into this at the beginning of my book. I started writing this book before Trump was elected, but I really talk about how COVID screwed up our economy more than anything, because it created this economy where we just gave people too much money. We gave them an unrealistic amount of money. And then we ended up paying for it later, because not only were once they had to go out and get a job, the whole market shifted, but like we tried to bail them out of a situation that we should have let the whole economy just fix itself. And so I talk about that a lot in my book, is that it's a really scary time, because we've just, since 9/11 to today, every 5 to 6 years there's some kind of crisis, and the government just comes in and bails out. And what that does is just expands the debt, and it just creates more of this cycle where people are just more connected to the government. They're just living off some kind of government. We saw it in 2008. The same thing happened. Saw it in 2020. There's always been these situations where there's this government bailout, and the problem with that is that it doesn't create an environment where you let the economy fix itself. You don't let things totally collapse, and you really need that sometimes.
Right.
The real estate market right now is a perfect example. I mean, they've really screwed up the real estate market, where the only way people are going to buy real estate today is if the money is so cheap that it's like slaps you in the face.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the real estate right now in the last 2 months is the worst amount of selling that we've seen in almost 40 years, because people see these higher rates and they're like, wow, this and that. But what they don't realize is that BlackRock and all these companies are buying homes like crazy, because BlackRock and all these big institutions, what they understand and what regular people don't understand is that the cost to rebuild is not going to get any cheaper. So yes, it may seem like it's expensive because the rate's high, but actually what they're missing is that the cost to rebuild that home is never going to go down. It's only going to go back up. So BlackRock's saying like, wow, if I can buy this house at $400 a foot, I know in 10 years, the cost to replace that house will be $800 a foot.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So buying an asset that will eventually continue to go up over time. And so the two things that I really get into is I talk about all the uses for silver and why I think it's an amazing opportunity, and why I think it really mirrors the potential growth in oil, what we saw in oil in the late 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
But I also really think the asset economy. And that's what I think we're in today, is that everything is assets, owning assets, businesses, precious metals, the right, other assets, some real estate. These are the assets that will just continue to go up over time. And you need to have some assets that have liquidity, like precious metals, and you need to have some other assets you're really thinking long term. And I think that's the only way to create wealth in this new economy, is having investments that are in hiding.
Right. And I'm no expert, but it just makes logical sense that gold and silver are smart for all the reasons you listed, because it's protected against these scam networks that are, racking up more money than the drug trafficking business out there. And it's tangible. You have it, you own it. So it just makes logical sense to me. And I know that you guys sometimes run special deals and offers for people. Do you have anything like that going on right now? If they give you a call or go to noblegoldinvestments.com?
Yeah, absolutely. We offer some free gold and silver with qualified purchase. We also do something that's totally unique in the industry, in that we, if you do an IRA with us, our average client stays in an IRA for about 7.5 years, give or take. So we offer service on the account for the life of the account. So anytime you call us, you have questions, we don't charge anything. After you buy the metals from us, we don't charge anything for that service. So when they dollar cost average and they look at the pricing of gold and silver, they look at our IRAs and they compare it to, let's say, a 401k or a mutual fund in there. what they realize is that a mutual fund is going to charge anywhere from 1 to 3% a year. No matter if the market goes up or down, they're going to get charged those fees. And those fees just get taken out. They're little buying fees when you're in mutual funds. With us, you just buy the metal from us one time. You do have storage, but it's a write-off. You can write that storage off in your IRA. It's segregated storage. And then you have us there for you for the life of the account. So if you ever have any questions, you can call us. So we offer that lifetime service on your IRA, which people really love, because things change. Like you're in retirement, you're going to start taking some distributions. What a lot of people are doing, they're taking their gold and silver as their distribution, so they're taking this out. But some people want to take it in cash. So all of that's the thing. There's a lot of people in this business that are short-term thinkers and there's long-term thinkers, and we're really in it for the long term. So the goal for us is that you do the IRA and then you just let it sit, and hopefully it does exactly what it's done over the last 5 or 6 years, continues to go up in value, and then we're there to service and help you. And so that's something that I would say is quite unique in the space. A lot of dealers will sell you the gold, that's it. They don't want to offer any service, but we're there for the life of the account to offer service.
And that's likely why you guys are one of the best in the business. And like I said, people can go out and see that for themselves. It's very easy to find. My mind went blank there. Hold on one second. I had something I was going to say. As far as your book goes, where can people check that out? I know it's on Amazon. Where else do you have that?
If you just go to Noble Gold Investments, we have discount codes.
Oh, nice.
You can one of our reps, they can give you a code. It is on Amazon, but if you call us directly, we can give you access to a code, and we can get you the book a little bit cheaper than Amazon. Or you can just buy it straight on Amazon. I promise it's an easy read. I even read the book to all my children, my 8-year-old. Some of the words, it took a little time, but overall, he got it. So it's pretty much for any age. A lot of good facts in there. I guarantee if you even if you know a little bit about silver, you will be blown away by some of the things in there. And I also give a few just out of the box strategies that I've used in my career to build wealth. I have some real estate strategies at the end of the book. So I offer some different tips because I really do practice what I preach. I am diversified. I have different assets in my portfolio. So I talk about some of that in the book. But yeah, I think anyone listening that if they're looking to learn a little about something new, get educated, I think they'll be happy with the read, and you could read this thing probably in a week. So.
Yeah, and it is really exciting. People don't realize like the boon that's coming for silver because there's just so much need for it. I mean, we're already there, but you can see going down the road just another 10 years, it's going to explode. And so, like I said, I'm not an expert on this, but just logically thinking, if I'm going to invest in something, it's going to be something solid like that. If you guys want to go check that out, make sure to go to noblegoldinvestments.com. And if you decide to go through with this, you talk to somebody, make sure to let them know that Dronetek sent you. Like I said, Collin is one of the best in the business. And if you want to support one of your favorite channels, you would be supporting me by buying your gold or silver from Noble Gold Investments. If you're going to do it already, I know a lot of you out there are already doing it. And if you're going to buy it anyway, you might as well support this channel while you're doing it. Collin, was there anything else that you wanted to talk about, or?
That's it. A lot of free information. Even if you just want to get our free guides, call us. You're going to talk to an actual live person, which I think people love. And everyone that you talk to, they love precious metals. This is what they do every day. So,
and that's what you want. Yeah, you want people that are
exactly.
obsessed with it and love it and are really into it. And that's what you find over at Noble Gold.
Yeah, you'll find that people at all ages. So, just happy to. Thanks for having me on, and then I'll see you on the next one.